We are here live with Billion Godsun, and we are African Town. Podcast coming soon, and Billion Godsun Speaks though. So Billion, for the ones who don't know, everybody can Google African Town, and it's all these different narratives though. So I'd rather hear it directly from the horse's mouth, I should say though. So exactly what is African Town for the ones who may be interested and want to know?
Well, African Town is a coalition of organizations that came together in 2016. We were at another high point where police were shooting our people down, and we felt as black men specifically, as opposed to reacting every time they kill one of our people, we needed to be more proactive and get out and start organizing our community to have some type of immediate resistance. Like, as soon as we see police interacting with our folks, we wanted to get out and make sure, we pay attention, depending on how intense the situation was, to start having different protocols on how we would respond and deal with it, have response teams. So initially it was 5 of us that met: myself, Kevin Wharton Price, Dino Capra, Brother Taru, and of course the great mighty Mac Capone, who has since made his transition.
Rest in power.
And as soon as we came together and started addressing the issue with the police terrorism, we also saw that the homelessness had become a crisis. So right in what is now our base in African Town, a lot of folks know as Lamert Park, at that time we had about 50 people who were sleeping inside of the park. And on the west end, Crenshaw, there were folks who were more so, drinking. And then on the east end, by the restrooms, there were folks who were, doing drugs, prostitution, whatnot going on. So we also saw the need to start doing mutual aid and get out there, get more familiar with the family that was in the park. I knew a lot of them. Some of them I saw grow up in the community. Some of them I grew up with in the community. So we started a Sunday mutual aid program to kind of just break bread with the family, but also try to identify, where they was at, what type of help they needed. And gradually we saw where the two separate ends of the park were kind of like battling each other for a moment. They gradually started coming together. So with that, we then started advocating to the city for resources, for housing, and it took about 1.5 years. In the first phase, they housed about 30 people who were in the park in the housing. But in that time, they then put a $500,000 fence around the park. So we felt, those funds, in addition to other funds that came out in 2016 with Measure H and Measure HHH, that people could have been housed as opposed to putting this fence up. So that then also led us to get more involved into advocating for public policy. So we sat back and we really looked at an agenda, first and foremost to deal with the issue of genocide. Second was the issue of gentrification, which included everything from the homelessness, but also black people all across the country were losing their homes due to the mortgage scams. The banks were basically allowing to rob people of their homes. The same time that all the black communities, rent was becoming unaffordable. So first we were looking at ending genocide, then gentrification, and third, we looked at from the 90s till now, a number of our people have been kidnapped and removed from our communities and put on these prison plantations. So the sister Michelle Alexander wrote a book, and she illustrated how there are more people on prison plantations today than we had on slave plantations during chattel slavery. Our fourth phase of focus is to build up a black economy. While all of this was going on, we saw we were gradually losing black businesses. And in LA, with the Crenshaw district, of what we call African Town, being the #1 area of black business, we saw the Metro Rail specifically displace a lot of businesses. So we started looking at ways to address that, but also means of creating more opportunities, which was starting the nonprofit Africatown Enterprise. And lastly, our focus, the fifth point of our agenda is to build self-governance, because we have no political representation. Political representation, we feel, pretty much has sold us out. Again, all across the country, black communities, you have black democratic misleaders who have created these same situations. So we know it's not just something that just happened to happen in LA, because we see the same thing in Chicago, Harlem, wherever, Houston, wherever black folks are right now. So that was our fifth phase of focus, and right now that's pretty much where the coalition is. But over the past couple of years, we have evolved the Africatown Coalition into an even stronger coalition with groups like Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, Downtown Crenshaw, SEWA, which is heading the cannabis social equity movement, our brothers and sisters on Skid Row like LA Can and others. Just right now, just making a real, making noise that Black LA has to be saved. Black LA is under attack and is being displaced, is being murdered. And we have to first and foremost bring our people together to address this.
So if you care to speak, Godsun, what is your affiliation with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, preferably with Dr. Melina Abdullah?
So with BLM LA, we actually predate the formation of the organization. Patrice Cullors, one of the three original founders of BLM. I've known her since about 2002. I believe when I first met her, she was organizing with the Bus Rider Union, and then just saw the sisters evolve into fighting the issues in the county jails and a number of different issues. And we always, met and supported each other in our works. And then one of my brothers introduced me, he was like, hey, I want you to come meet this professor at Cal State LA. She reminds me of you. And I'm like, huh? So they had a event, I believe it was a little bit after Black History, and I went and I met Dr. Melina, and I saw the power she had on that campus, because prior to that, going to Cal State LA, it was like, where are the black people at? That was like one of the colleges black folks in LA did not want to go to. But when I went there, I saw her, I saw the program she had, I saw the community she was building on campus. So again, this predates the formation of BLM. Also with her, invited her to participate in some of the things we were doing. She was very supportive. So when the night that BLM actually formed, after the verdict where I call him George Zimmer Monkey was found not guilty for murdering Trayvon, we were all in Africatown that night. And we all took over the streets that night. And I believe it was the very next day, Patrice called everyone to a meeting. I actually went to that very first BLM meeting. But at the time, I was the chair of another coalition we had called the Council of Ujima. It was about 7 organizations we had in that. And I knew at that time I wouldn't be able to fully participate with BLM, but also take care of my duties in the Council of Ujima. So for pretty much the first year of their formation, I was not as involved. Gradually, our brother Mac Capone and Dino joined and became members, so they kind of kept me up on what was going on. And then about 2014, when Michael Brown, Ezell Ford, and a few other people were murdered by the police, we started doing actions together. So over the next few years, we collaborated on different actions. And then about a couple years ago, as they began to become targets, we then stepped in a role as security providers for them. So for the past couple years, that's kind of been where our relationship is at. But like I said, also within that last couple years, we have been involved in a collaborative fight to save Black LA with them and other groups, because we found a lot of it's coming from city dictated policy. So all of us are addressing a lot of the same nefarious characters in our battles. A lot of us on different levels are pushing back against the police terrorism and other things. They're very supportive in pretty much everything that's happening at this point. Like right now, we're fighting to save Africatown. And part of that is our Sunday fight for the African marketplace. They have been some of the main financial providers for that. A number of members have consistently come on Sundays to help set up, clean up, and do a lot of different things to provide support. So it's pretty much like a family relationship.
So if you don't care to speak, Godsun, okay, do you care to speak on the negative comments that are thrown at African Town? They say this is from what I heard, that they're thugs, they're ruthless, they're reckless, they're pretty much menaces to society. How do you feel, to elaborate on that? How do you feel? Do you take that personal? I mean, coming from where you are, your position, and the
so
yeah.
What type of language? We keeping this clean, or can we talk?
I mean, this is being Godson speaks. I mean,
all right, fuck them. You know, straight up, fuck them. I mean, for real, because we're dealing with the shit nobody else want to deal with. And people can sit back on their sofa and they can look on social media and they can assume how certain shit should be addressed, but until you actually get out here and do it, you don't see how ugly it is. And coming out here trying to address a lot of ugliness with a pretty face, sometimes it gets you ate up. You know, dealing with the police terrorism. One of the things that really propelled me to be more hands-on in combating police terrorism, I tried filing the grievances. I tried going through the process, and basically they just told me, fuck you. You know, case, I had police bust my head. Case was adjudicated. So at that point, that told me the only thing that's gonna save me from police is me. And as I got in the community, I saw the only thing that could save our people from police is those of us that step up. Then you got another major thing where community took issue against us is when we were fighting a number of Korean establishments that were in our community on pretty much a predatorial type basis. They were running businesses, everything from liquor stores to you name it at this point. You know, they run a lot of the businesses, but they aren't hiring black people. A couple of years ago, it got to where we were seeing videos almost every other week where they were abusing black women. So again, that wasn't a situation where we could go and talk nice and polite to people. Sometimes we had to go and put hands on them, not just to discipline them, but to deliver a message to their community. Y'all in our community living off of us. Y'all not hiring us. Y'all won't allow us to come in y'all community and sell a cup of water. So y'all way out of bounds coming over here doing that. And, you know, we just had to deliver that message. And then internally, you know, dealing with a lot of our social ills within our community. That's another area where a lot of people have issue with us as Africa Town, because, again, I don't know how they feel certain issues should be addressed, but, you know, if we got people in the community who are praying, who are violating, who are being violent with each other, that's not something where, again, we could be nice about it. You know, we could try to talk and educate people, but sometimes you just got people that's like, fuck you, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do me, what you going to do about it? So at that point, we got to do about it. It's those moments where people capture those small instances, because, again, they take small instances like that and they try to say that's Africa Town. They don't look at us feeding our brothers and sisters in the streets for what, 2016 now. It's 5 years we've been doing this. The past several years, we've been collecting money to get people hotel rooms, get people tents, to help people pay their rent. You know, some of us are homeless and we helping other people pay their rent. We're helping people with their mortgage assistance. So people miss all of that, and they'll take something like, you know, there have been certain programs in Africa Town where some of our brothers stepped up and shut it down because white people were involved. And our issue is, if we're going to push back against gentrification, we can't pick and choose when we say it's okay for white folks to come and set up and take over. We have to be across the board and say no, and then figure out how are we as a black community going to pool our resources and buy the space. You know, just like with downtown Crenshaw right now, they're fighting to buy this mall, but unfortunately, the people that are selling it keep saying, no, we're not going to take that black money. We're going to find a white overseer to come and have this space. And that's where we're saying no. So because we push a hard line and maybe one of the more radical lines in LA right now, that's why a lot of people don't like mentioning us or downplay us, or we might not have as much success in fundraising as other people. But again, we're the ones that do all the shit nobody else want to do. And even when it comes to cleaning up the community, cleaning up the streets right now. You know, on one end, we're cleaning up the social ills, but we also literally have been getting out and dealing with the lack of sanitation that the city provides. So that's something else that people overlook when they say Africa Town, and they just want to focus on these small instances. They want to.
And I definitely like to speak on that, Billion, because you have, I know you like to be called Leimert Park, and you don't like to be called it that, but for the ones who don't know about Africa Town, they just say Leimert Park, Africa Town. How is it that this side is pretty much just a catastrophe? It's dirty, it's filth, and you guys pretty much have to clean up on your own. But if you go across the street on the other side of Crenshaw, it's like Beverly Hills. So what do you think is the reason for that, and what steps have you made to kind of rectify that?
Well, one of the things we found is, I believe it was about 2015, some of the local officials, Earl Weston, Mark Ridley Thomas, they and some of their pundits, certain black misleaders and organizations, in addition to white corporations like Metro and USC, came together and they convened a meeting, and they came up with what they call their 2020 vision. And basically in that, they had planned on, by the year 2020, last year, with the Metro opening, they had hoped that it would open last year. They had envisioned this whole new area over there. But in order to fulfill that vision, they felt they needed to get rid of certain businesses that were already there. In addition, they wanted to force certain property owners out, and they wanted to force the street vendors out. They wanted to force the homeless out. So just like we found initially with the homeless issue, resources were coming out, but they were being allocated to nonprofits that were close to these officials that were just basically passing out bus tokens and sandwiches. Instead of actually housing people, they were finding clever ways to usurp the funds and enrich themselves. So then when we get to the fight of the street vending, like we've been dealing with for almost a year now, instead of providing brothers and sisters with resources, because street vending, you find one or two things. You find creative people who chose to not go into the traditional workforce, and they either want to generate their own means of living, or they might want to use street vending as a step to get to the next level. We have about 3 or 4 brothers and sisters who have graduated from street vending to brick and mortar. And then the second thing you find with street vending is people that's been forced out of the workplace, and now they have to find a means to survive. So now they're out in the streets trying to feed their family, trying to pay their rent. So instead of providing these brothers and sisters with the resources to either help secure them or to help them elevate, the city started using these same Negro pundits to call enforcement on them and try to force them out that way. So we got them, we helped working with Sister Jen and LA legal assistant. We helped them get their permits and licenses. Then we helped formulate a vending association. So their next move was to throw out a permit on the street and take hold of the streets. So we were able to fight and get the permit. Once we got the permit, they started attaching all these different fees, trying to, again, price us out, just like they do with rent. So to this point, again, thanks to the community support, we've been able to hold the permit for about 3 months, a little over 3 months now. But that was the second phase of the fight. And now we're finding the next phase of the fight. Like I was saying, with the 2020 vision, they wanted to force out certain owners. And part of that was to blight the area. Basically, not provide the type of cleanup services that were needed, and to allow the homeless encampments to stay in place and basically run off business. So the two things we saw played out with that, with the cleanup situation, the cleanup contract known as the bid in that area, the Business Improvement District, went to Community Build. And right now, Community Build is being headed by their president, Robert Saucedo, who just so happens to have a close relationship with Mark Ridley Thomas. So Robert Saucedo mismanaged the bid to where now it's frozen, and the cleanup was not taking place. Again, encampments was left there. So one of the primary non-black owners in the area, the Botak family, just announced they're selling theirs. And the main two reasons they said was because no one helped them deal with the homeless situation, and because the money in the bid was being mismanaged. So two things they announced way back in 2015 have now played out. So again, we're seeing what you just asked. Why is one side of Africa Town a shanty town, third world, on the other side, one of the prime areas in this nation, very intentional to try to take it over and gentrify it.
Man, that's pretty deep though. So around 2 weeks ago, I think about 2 weeks ago, you and your crew were there for the Fatima Johnson family. And it's just amazing that you guys are out there doing this amazing work. And you have media outlets who not even covering, who don't even care to cover the stuff that you are doing, standing with the families. You care to speak on that situation? Is it out of pocket? Speak on the Fatima Johnson situation, because you were on the loudspeaker and you were speaking some real shit. And I had to stop, like, wow, this brother, I had to catch up with him for this interview. And you were speaking on, one, domestic violence and how black men need to regain the confidence in the black woman. So you want to kind of elaborate on that though, what you felt, the passion behind that, what you were speaking on?
So, doing this work, for me, it's been, about 30 years now, putting my life on the line, sacrificing, committing all my time, energy, and resources to our people. And it's like when we see a little bit of progress in our pushback against the state and outside entities that are preying on us, the hardest news to always accept is that our own people have done our own people. Be it somebody got killed, somebody got robbed, somebody got seriously violated. Even when you hear about folks, cheating and playing on each other, it's like, come on, y'all. We are being wiped out right now. We are in no position to still be in that state, but at the same time, overstanding that it's a source of what we've been cultivated. We've been socially engineered to be these type of people. Again, being removed from our natural state as Africans, or even our natural state as some of the original inhabitants of the Americas, when these sick, predatory people came, forced our ancestors up under them and forced their culture on us, and then forced us in a constant subjugated position to where we have no resource other than to exploit each other. Again, it just really hurts knowing that we're still in that state of functioning. And, again, when we get out and we can be in a community for an extended amount of time, we see the change happening. But unfortunately, that situation up on Western was a little bit out of our regular area of operation. And, we used to get out and go around the city and do what we call Black Power Hours, where almost every day we would go spend 1 or 2 hours on certain main intersections, get on the loudspeaker and just try to push this message. And even we would do what we call hood marches. Any hood where we saw the killing was escalating, violence was escalating, we would get out and march through those communities, one, to try to inspire some of the young people, and also to try to recruit some people in so they could then carry the work into their community. Because a lot of times people always ask, what can I do? What can I do? And a lot of times they just don't know it's a matter of being an alternative presence. It's not always a specific program or having this or that. Sometimes just being out there intersecting them young people as they're on their way to do a crime, as they're on their way to kill somebody, as they're on their way raping. And you might be out there when the kids are walking to school or walking home, and you can catch the predators out there. But again, it's just having that presence. And that day in particular, it was just really feeling the pain of the family and not being able to, somebody hungry, you can feed them. Somebody homeless, you can get them a tent, you can get them a room. But when somebody's mom is being killed, it's really nothing you can do. Even if we went and found the person who did it that day, dealt with the person that day, it would provide some relief to them, but it still would not alleviate the fact that their mom is never coming back. Their mom had to leave in a manner that violent, so it's like, still dealing with that, and just taking on that energy and trying to figure out, what is it can we say, can we do to really get the people. And I was just watching folks out there, and I saw mostly brothers, because I don't want to be unfair to our brothers, because a lot of brothers' issue comes from coming out of dysfunctional homes. And sometimes that could be a dysfunctional father or dysfunctional mother. So a lot of times, when you get it, Cass, and just try to put it all on them, they like, well, hold up. I'm the one that got violated in a relationship. I'm the one who mom was abused me. I'm the one who mom did this, that, and the other. So it's understanding all the different dynamics to go into it, and really just talking to whoever is there at the time, but also listening, trying to figure out, what exactly is going on. But right now we are in a severe state to where we just really encourage people that preying on, exploiting, destroying each other, lying, cheating on each other. We ain't got no time for that right now, y'all. Right now, we got to figure out, just like our ancestors did in past times, they got out of slavery, not with the coonery, not with the buffoonery. They got out of the Jim Crow. They, the Panthers went through the hell they went through, and we saw the ones who were solid made the change, but unfortunately, it was the ones who were caught up in this European culture who helped to kind of bring them down. So again, it's like, what side of the fence are we going to really be on? Because you can't straddle the fence. That's where a lot of people get it twisted. They think you can play both sides, but if you play both sides, you're really playing the side of the oppressor, because that's what they want. So that's what we're really emphasizing to people right now, for we could successfully deal with the state, for we could successfully deal with the developers, the outside interests. We have to tighten our unit as a family, as people, brothers and sisters, to where we look, respect, value, love each other, to where if I see something happen to anybody black, or even if I don't know them, I'm willing to go put my life on the line if necessary, because that's something else we saw the past few years that kind of also went into us forming the coalition. We saw too many dudes on YouTube getting views with them videotaping a black woman getting beat down by the police. As a man, how can you stand there and watch a woman get beat down by the police? Seeing adults stand there and watch these police abuse our children. How can you as an adult stand there and watch these sadistic bastards do that to our children? You're more so thinking, how many views can I get? So that's part of the mind state we're trying to change. But again, with the technology right now, it's an even greater battle, because this social media is a whole nother beast in and of itself.
One last question, Billion. You're a good dude. Very intelligent.
You are too, brother.
You got a lot of bricks thrown at you. What is the motivation? The people like, he must do it for the money. He must have a crazy bank account, because he's going hard in the community. He's doing all this stuff. You constantly being bricks blown off you, but you standing on your feet. What is the passion and the motivation that keeps you going strong, my brother? Because every other week bricks are being thrown at you, but you keep coming back. So what is that fight, and what keeps you going? What is that fuel that ignites you?
Well, first I'm gonna say, keep throwing in bricks, and I'm gonna build a nice ass house. But, I think for all of us, it's what's in us. Because this is something you can read a book, you can watch, and if it's not in you, you're not gonna step up and do it. But if it's in you, the world could be against you, and you're gonna keep going. I think two things that really inspired me within my own experience is the very first night I went to jail. There was a rebellion up in Westwood, and Westwood used to be the place where black folks would go on the weekend to watch certain black movies that came out. And that particular weekend, it was the Friday after Rodney King had got beat. Rodney King got beat that Sunday. That Friday, the movie New Jack City came out. And we were up there, and about 300 of us tried to buy tickets to go watch this movie. And after they let about half of us in, they told the rest of us we couldn't come in. So we were kind of like, okay, we'll give us a refund. They were like, come back Monday. Now this is Friday. They didn't say come back tomorrow or Sunday. They said come back Monday, like hold up. So we got riled up. They called in the UCLA police. At first, it's only a handful of them. Then I think Santa Monica police came, so then it was probably 12 of them. So they started pushing us down the street. And then finally, one brother just turned around and snapped. He was like, y'all not about to treat us like Rodney King. Then another brother grabbed a trash can, ran and threw it at him. At that point, they all turned and ran. And that woke up something inside of me that said, you know what? That's all it's about. At first, they had enough numbers. They had guns and shit to where they felt confident. But the moment we snapped on them and we took the aggression, they ran. It showed me how much of cowards they really are. So that was one of the first things. But then just over the years doing the work, seeing how we collectively can change things. Whether it's been the liquor stores we fought, the developers we done fought, people always saying, y'all can't do this, y'all can't do that, but we do it. And then it's like afterwards, okay, we can do it. So I think that's always it. And then also knowing that the state is always going to counter and come with their personal attacks, try to turn us against each other, try to slide people up on us to disrupt us. But again, once we identify that and deal with it, it's just knowing that we can do it. I think that's my personal main driving thing. But again, because it's in all. I don't think none of us would be here right now were it not in us. We'd probably be doing what everybody else is doing right now.
But I'm gonna say though, hands down, you know, as far as me, as far as Los Angeles though, man, we just wanna salute you, man. You know, we appreciate you.
I salute y'all, man. It's not just me. I would be out here talking about myself. I could have been out here fighting police. I would have been dead if it wasn't for y'all stepping up, supporting. So it ain't just me, it's us.
So yo, Big Godson Speaks, y'all.
There you go, son.
Black Power.
Black Power.
Black Power.